Over the past several years, I've developed a reputation for being one of the top IUL critics in the business. Now, fair or unfair, a lot of people believe that I hate IUL and I like to make all this content bashing IUL. I would argue that what I do is anything but bashing. My perspective is to educate people and to show how IUL works from a different perspective, to actually get inside of the product and look at how it functions, not just talk about the hype and all of the elements and attributes that people like to focus on to sell it, right? And so that is the focus. So I'm not saying IUL is all bad. I'm just saying it's bad for you. And at the end of the day, in this video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get into why I believe that to be true based on how it's sold and probably what you think you're getting involved with. So that's it. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell that way you're notified every time I launch a new video. And if you haven't, and if you do find value in this video, I ask you and implore you to share this out there with as many people as possible, because there are literally hundreds of thousands of life insurance agents right now representing and misrepresenting this most mischaracterized financial product in the industry. So let's go. Hey, what's going on, Cashflow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180, and today we are talking about how IUL is not necessarily all bad. It's just bad for you. And here's the deal. We're gonna get into exactly why. I wanna keep this as simple as possible. Now, one of the things that happens, I'm not gonna get into any illustrations in this video, and I just wanna say out of the gate, I get a lot of comments from people when I do these types of videos that say, hey, you should show an illustration, you should do all this stuff. Well, I've got an IUL playlist that's got a lot of videos where I go through in detail all the illustrations, I break it down, I talk about the dangers and all this stuff. But the purpose of this video is I'm gonna break down very simplistically in very layman's terms so everybody can understand where I think the problem is with Index Universal Life. And so let's just get into it. And this is gonna be really, really straightforward. My big issue isn't with the product, it's with how the product is sold, okay? So I wanna just kind of take a look at this for a second and talk about how is IUL sold. Well, if you think about it, and if I'm not sure, obviously everybody's got a different pitch. There's literally hundreds of thousands of agents with World Financial Group, PHP, other independent IUL agents out there that would like to argue with me about this. But at the end of the day, IUL is sold as a financial vehicle that has upside potential and downside protection, and they claim that you cannot lose money due to market loss. And to this, I'm going to respond, because at the end of the day, they're selling this product as this product that cannot lose money. They're selling this product as kind of this hybrid thing that's got all the good things of whole life insurance, but none of the downsides, right? None of the downsides, no risk. You can't lose money when the market loses. And at the end of the day, there's an element of truth to this, but it's also a bit of smoke and mirrors when it comes down to it, because at the end of the day, you can lose money with an IUL, and people lose money with IULs all the time. And there are more class action lawsuits about people losing money in IULs than any other financial product in the world. And that to me is proof in the pudding about how dangerous these products can be. And you can go online. Forbes wrote an article about the dangers of IUL. And granted, you know, there have been positive articles written in Forbes. And I would caution anybody that watches Forbes as like a media company that is backing up anything or writing an opinion, because all there are people that are Forbes contributors, and they're writing articles from their own perspective and their license, and they have their own agenda and objective, typically speaking there. So that said, here's the deal. I want to get into exactly what I believe the problem is with IUL. And so here's the deal. When we look at how IUL really works, this is important to understand. So I'm going to break this down. So you pay a premium, and out of that premium, some goes to the cost of insurance, admin fees, we'll just call it charges, like other charges and costs, right? Right, anything of that nature. So you pay the premium, that's how it goes. Now a portion goes into cash value. So a portion of that goes into cash value. And what happens is out of this cash value, some of that money goes in, well, all that money goes into the general fund of the life insurance company. Now what happens is as that general fund goes in, let's say out of this money, let's say there was a premium, let's call it $10,000. Okay, $10,000 premium. Some of it's going to go to charges, admin fees, whatever. Let's just say that you have somebody that says, listen, we're going to build a maximized, optimized policy. Okay, and we'll say that out of that $10,000, let's say 1,000 goes towards, let's just say 1,000 goes towards the cost of insurance and admin charges and all that, and then 9,000 goes towards the cash value, right? And so this is going to be sitting in the general fund of the life insurance company, and it's going to get a return on it. And that return is going to be, let's just say, whatever the general fund is getting, let's just for the sake of round numbers call it 4%. It's probably a little higher than that at this point in time, but I'm doing this video to teach a concept and to teach a principle. That way you can utilize this in any economic environment, and you can utilize this to really figure out the flow of money. So what does this mean? So 4%, they know they can get 4% on your $9,000. So what happens is, this is how IULs work, because they're sold on what? Upside potential, downside protection. They say you can earn up to whatever the cap rate is, and if the market goes below zero, you cannot lose money due to market loss. Well, how do they pull that off? Well, here's how they do it. They basically say 4%. 4% of 9,000 is $360, I believe. Yes, $360. So what they do here is this 360 is the amount of money that they know their general fund can produce on a guaranteed basis. So all they're doing is they're saying, rather than credit you this 4%, instead of crediting you that 4% and giving it to you, they're going to go buy an option. They're going to create an options budget. An option budget. And so they're going to take this $360 and they're going to buy a call option. Oh, I'll do CO for call option. So they're going to go buy a call option. Now the price of this call option is going to dictate how many options they buy, and the combination of the options budget that's created by this 4% obviously creates the options budget. So just to give you an example here, if this options budget went up to 5%, hypothetically, that 360 budget would be $450, right? Because 5% of 9,000 is 450, right? So let's just assume that, actually, just for the sake of this, I'm gonna just pull a little curveball on you. So let's just, and I'm doing this because 5% is a little high for right now. It's probably 4.5%, but I'd rather be, a little more liberal with these numbers, because people will, say that the market's going up. As the market goes up, as the dividend rates go up, as the performance of the general fund goes up, so will the options budget. So a lot of people will say that, all right, we got a $450 options budget. Well, guess what? It's the options budget, but then it's also, they have to buy these call options, so the cost of options plays into it. So what happens is, in order for them to understand how they build the policies out, you're going to look in every IUL policy. You're going to find cap rates. You're going to find participation rates. You're going to find spread charges. There's going to be some element of these that come into play. And then obviously you're also going to have an index like the S&P 500 that you're going to be participating in all of these different things. And these rates are going to have an impact on it. So what's going to happen is, how do they impact these spread rates and charges? Because the S&P 500, you don't know. Everybody says you participate in the S&P 500. The bottom line is the S&P 500 is going to go up or down no matter what. You are participating in it through call options, right? That's how you're doing it. They're taking this guaranteed $450 that you'd make. And instead of giving it to you and crediting it to you and giving you $9,450 here, instead of doing that, they're basically saying, no, we're going to give you the $9,000. We're going to take the guaranteed return that we give you, and we're just going to buy options with it, which is what's called a hedging strategy. And this is where people don't realize that this is not doing options in a very speculative way. So it's doing options in a hedged sort of way that is not designed to get big returns. And so when you think about it and you really break it down like that, it's kind of crazy to think to have people think that you're going to get these big, massive returns. But the bottom line is this, is like, you got the options budget, and then you have options cost. These two things together are what lead to the cap rate setting, the par rate setting, and the spread charge setting. No matter what, these variables can always be changed by the company. So it doesn't matter if the S&P 500 does 5%, 0%, 20%, it doesn't make a difference, because your participation in that can always be changed by these two things. All that matters is the options cost and the options budget. And the problem right now is, if you understand anything about options, there's a couple things that go into options cost. Market volatility, drive up costs, supply demand, drive up costs. So volatility and supply and demand. So what is this? What is supply and demand? When there's volatility, that actually leads to more supply and demand, because people are trying to take advantage of that volatility, and one of the best ways to cash in is to buy options, and so people do that a lot. Now, the other thing is supply and demand is the fact that back in 2014, when I stopped selling IULs, there were between 15 to 20 companies that were selling it in 2014, in 2014. Now, in 2023, there are over 70 plus. There's 70 plus companies. I think there's 74 companies last I saw that are selling IUL right now. So what does that mean? That means 70 companies that are vying for the same supply of these options. And so what's happened is the IUL industry as a whole has created its own monster. It's created its own problem, because now what that's doing is it's creating more demand, and that's driving the costs up. Now, on top of that, the market is going crazy right now, and there's more volatility in the market. And so that's also driving costs up. So this is why I always tell people, no matter what, even if the market goes up, if the dividend rate goes up and the options budget goes up, which is what I illustrated here, even if that happens, the costs of the options are countering. They're going up even at a faster rate. So that's going to make it so the cap rates have a hard time moving in the benefit of the client, or the par rates, or any of these things have a benefit of moving for the client. So even if the next 5 years, 10 years, the market, the S&P 500 does okay, chances are it's more likely that cap rates, par rates, and spread charges are going to get moved in the favor of the insurance company, not you, the policyholder. And I want to be cautious when I say moved in favor of the insurance company. It's not moved in favor of the insurance company so they make more money. It's moved so they don't have the risk. It's moved so they don't have to eat that cost and pay you that extra cap or pay that extra money when the market does well. These cap rates are not put into place. They don't reduce cap rates or par rates or increase spread charges. They don't do that for the insurance company to make more money. I think that's a fallacy. They do that because it's simply math. They're trying to see, what can they actually afford? What is the price? What is the cost? What can the returns be legitimately on this options budget and options cost? And when you understand that, you understand, wow, okay, this is how it's sold is something with pure upside potential with downside risk, or downside protection, I should say. Downside protection. Right? That's how it's sold right there. But how it really works, I just showed you, right? That's how it works. And when you realize the risks involved with that, the question is, if you don't understand options, why would you take this 450, this guaranteed return, to buy an option that is not even done with like a super leveraged way to be able to maximize these returns? And the bottom line is, here's the challenge. The other thing that happens here, now here's the thing, is that people have what's called ART, annual renewable term, into these policies. So here's the deal. This is the thing that I think is really, really vital for people to understand, is that the annual renewable term, when you're young, it's good. So a lot of times, my challenge with this product is that people won't know the problem until it's too late. People won't know that they have a problem or that they made a bad decision until it's too late. Because when you're young, the cost of annual renewable term is really cheap. So, 30 to 50 years old, it's a good thing, right? But the problem is now what they do is that it keeps the cost of insurance there, but keeps it good and low at that point in time. But the point is, when you're retired, why are you buying this product? What, for most people, they're purchasing it based on this upside potential, downside protection, and they're buying it for tax-free income. That's how it's sold 95% of the time, right? Tax-free income. So if you're buying it for tax-free income in retirement, it would go to reason that this is when you need it to work. This is when you need this product to be your hero. And the problem is, this is when it has all the challenges. So one of the things that they say to you is that you're gonna design the policy to be option B, which is increasing death benefit, while you're funding it, and then shift to option A, which is a level death benefit, when you stop funding it in retirement. That's when you want to move that so it keeps the life insurance from going up. And the goal is to eat into that and be able to have the cash value grow. And people say it reduces the cost of insurance when you do that. But the problem is, when you get to the point where you start taking income, you're taking income through the form of loans, which, by the way, I don't have a complete problem with from certain perspectives. There are instances where utilizing loans from whole life insurance in retirement make a lot of sense. In fact, there's a lot of strategies that I would argue are extremely powerful utilizing loans. But I would also argue that utilizing life insurance as your primary source of retirement income through the use of loans is a really dangerous leverage strategy that is inevitably going to blow up in your face. Because think about it this way. When you take these loans, let's say you pay 4 to 5%. Okay, let's just call it 5% for the sake of things right now in today's market rate environment. That's about what we're going to be. So if you start taking, let's say you accumulate a couple $1 million, or let's say I've seen these policies kick out 10% income every year a lot of times, especially the Allianz Pro Plus Advantage, and it's kind of an atrocity that the company allows them to illustrate like that when their annuity, which has no insurance costs or anything like that, cannot provide that kind of income. So I don't see how people think the index strategy in the IUL is going to be able to, after all charges and fees and all that stuff. But I digress. So here's the thing. Let's say at 65 years old, somebody has, let's just call it 1.2 million of cash value. Okay? And out of that cash value, they want to start taking 100,000 per year of income. Okay, so what happens is year one at 65, let's say they start taking it at 65, you got the 5%, so you're going to take this and you're going to all of a sudden owe $105,000 on it the next year. But then year two, you're going to take another 100,000. Right, that's 205 plus 5%, which I'm not going to do the math on, but that's, you go to year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6. Here's the deal. Go through history and look. And when you look at an IUL illustration, it's never going to show you a down year. Illustrations show 0 down years. So whenever you have perpetual growth, you can look at these things on an illustration and they bake in 50 basis points of positive spread. Meaning the policy's growing by more than the cost of borrowing. So if it's showing a 5% loan cost, it's growing by 5.5% every single year. But the reality is that's not how it works. And here's the danger. This is where they lose money. Let's say by the time you're 70, let's just say by the time you're 70, when you borrow against this at 1.2 million, and you're taking 100,000 a year, by the time you're 70, you pull 500,000 of cash, plus you have your loan. Let's say you're $600,000 of a loan that you owe on it at 70 years old, okay? At 70, right here, you owe $600,000. Well, guess what? If the market has a 0% year, not a negative year, but a 0% year, you're pulling that 100,000 out at your age 70. And so now you had the 600,000 that you started with. You're pulling the extra 100,000 for income out, like you talked about. And the problem is now you're at 700,000. You have no positive arbitrage. And the problem is now you're paying 5% on this. That's $35,000. So now you owe $735,000. That's just that year, right? And that $735,000, that $35,000 of interest expense is the cost because you don't have this 5.5%. You don't have this positive arbitrage that's being illustrated on you. You have 1 year like that, and now this $35,000 loss on that, that's the equivalent of, and by the way, your cash value is going to be less than what you see because your net cash value is going to be lower than the 1.2 million. So this 0% year will wind up being the equivalent of a 10% market loss. So if you think about that and you look at the risk and you realize the fact that during retirement, the market is going to be down 20 to 25% of the time are going to be flat years. And 30 to 35% of the time, 30 to 35% of the time, the market is going to be less than credited. This is just historical. So on the IUL illustrations, they show them 100% of the time with positive arbitrage, positive spread. But the reality is 30 to 35% of the time, the years are going to cost more in those environments. Now, in those years where you are performing less, and that money, the way you fund that, the way you make up for it, the way you pay for it is through the money in the policy. And so what does that do? That increases your net amount at risk, which is, that increases the annual renewable term charge, right? Because the spread, if you understand net amount at risk, it's the death benefit minus the net cash value, which is the cash you have in there, equals net amount at risk. And when you understand the death benefit minus the net cash value, so when this net cash value goes down, it increases the net amount at risk. That is the amount of insurance you're paying for. So if this goes up at 75 years old, if the net amount at risk goes up, what happens is your insurance charges go through the roof. They go up in accordance. And if you get a 10 or 15 or 20% insurance charge bump at 75, that compounds this problem. And I can tell you between the age of 75 and 82, if you have 2 or 3 bad years, which is not outside of the realm of reasonable possibility, there's not many policies that are designed and constructed, even these quote unquote well-designed policies by people. There's not many that are designed well enough and that are mature enough and that are funded well enough and that are not being taken too much income from, that they will not blow up. And so this goes to the problem. This goes to my point. IULs are not bad. They're just not good for you, right? And here's the thing. It's not a matter of what it looks like while you're going through the accumulation years. It's all about distribution. There are people like Curtis Ray out there with his MPI strategy that tries to convince people that IULs are a better income vehicle, a better distribution vehicle than other assets. And the reality is nothing could be further from the truth. IULs are an extremely dangerous retirement vehicle, a very dangerous income distribution vehicle. Now, there are other ways to go about doing this. This is one of the reasons I love whole life insurance. Whole life insurance should never be seen as a retirement income vehicle on its own. It shouldn't be self-standing. It's got to be part of a bigger plan. but there are ways that you can show, because of the guarantees and because of the predictability and the way that whole life functions, it can take your other assets and make it better. That's why I call it the BASF. If you remember the BASF commercials from back in the day, they don't make the products you buy, they make the products you buy better. Whole life insurance is not the investment you make, it simply makes the investments you make better, because in negative years when your assets are down, you can use whole life that has guarantees that you will not have the same negative impacts that IUL has on down years. And you can use whole life in down years and then use the rest of your assets for income in positive years. And that has gone to, and there's statistics, Dr. Wade Pfau has done a lot of research on this, showing that it can literally bump your retirement income by multiple percentage points as far as the annual return expectation, by multiple percentage points on average during retirement, by utilizing a guaranteed asset like whole life insurance. Now, the problem is IULs are sold as having similar predictability, similar safety, but the bottom line is nothing could be further from the truth. When you buy an IUL, you are taking all that risk on, versus when you have a whole life policy, the insurance company holds all the risk and they meet the guarantees for you. And I think if you're buying an insurance policy, one of the things is you have to understand, why are you putting your money with an insurance company? If you're doing it for safety, then you need to go with a product that has the safety. If you're doing it for control and you want liquidity of that money, you want to go with a company and with a product that's going to give you the best control and have all the rules and all the stipulations in the policy that are put into place to your benefit, not to the insurance company's benefit. And that is exactly why I think most people do not realize what they're getting into. And now before I end, here's what I will say. IUL can be used as a cheaper term policy. If you wanted to utilize it as a permanent life insurance and never planned on using it for income and retirement, I would still make a really strong argument that whole life insurance is the better play, or buying a convertible term and converting it over a period of time to whole life insurance, depending on what your situation is still the better play. But if you design a policy properly and you fund it properly and you don't leverage it for loans for income and retirement, and it's just a legacy play, there are a lot of situations where IUL can work. Am I saying it's the best? No, I'm not, but it can work. And what I mean by work is you don't have to worry about it lapsing if you fund it properly and if you give it enough time and you're not leveraging it too much. For a legacy play, it can work, and that's it. So anyway, hopefully you found value in this. I know it was long, but this is one of those topics where once again, I started off with this. I'm not bashing IUL. I'm all about educating people how it works, and unfortunately, not enough people who are even selling it even understand how it works. And sadly, that is a top-down problem. These insurance companies just are not putting out the education about how they work, because if people understood what I just showed you, how this works, and the insurance companies know this, they realize that all the sex appeal to what this product is sold as would be gone and they wouldn't sell it. And it's one of the top profit centers of all these insurance companies. For everybody that says that insurance companies are these safe, noble companies, they would never do this. That's what they say. That's what all these IUL agents say. Not all of them, but some of them, a lot of them. And to that I say, well, look at the traditional universal life history that was started in 1980 and look at all the policyholders that got just destroyed by the poor performance and then of those policies, and then look at how the insurance companies handled and treated those individuals. It wasn't pretty. So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, comment in the comment section below. I'll do my best to engage with every single comment. That's it. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. That way you're notified every time I launch a new video. Till next time, have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk soon. See ya.